Live to Washington, where Senator Scott and Congressman Donalds are holding a news conference on the Arctic frost investigation.
Senator Ron Johnson is speaking right now. Let's take a listen.
The first 9 members targeted by Jack Smith that we were notified by the FBI, we had our names. The subpoenas we're getting right now are just phone numbers. I call Rick Scott a fair amount, so I recognize his phone number, and that's why he was notified so quickly. We're right now trying to track down the phone numbers of the additional subpoenas we received yesterday. So stay tuned. There'll be more announcements made. We want to do that in conjunction with the individuals that were targeted. But that's the other point I want to really emphasize. I know people have called this a fishing expedition. I don't disagree with this as a partisan fishing expedition trying to dig up some wrongdoing on the part of Republicans. It's far worse than that. This is a massive partisan dragnet. It was designed to provide information for their lawfare scheme to literally cripple their political opposition, the Republican Party. That's what this is all about. This is a scandal far more egregious than anything that Watergate ever was. People need to understand that. Second point I want to make, we're getting information from Verizon. We're getting information from whistleblowers. We're getting some information from the Department of Justice. And so I want to encourage more whistleblowers. I want to encourage and thank Verizon for providing us the information they're providing. Bring it, be completely transparent. But we need more whistleblowers inside these agencies, across government, that have integrity, that want to see credibility and integrity restored to their own agencies and departments. We need more whistleblowers because the deep state remains. There are people burrowed in, doing everything they can to sabotage the second Trump administration as they attempted to sabotage the first. The third point I want to make is I've got a great deal of sympathy for Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino. These are people that are aggressively trying to get control of their agencies, but because of the deep state, because of the fact that they had to, a lot of partisans quit, they had to terminate a number of them, they're unable to replace them because of the lawfare. Lawfare against honorable people like Judge Troups in Wisconsin, who they're trying to destroy him because he simply represented the President of the United States in his election challenge. So it's effective on the part of the left. That's why they're doing it. And as Rick Scott mentioned, this isn't a one-off. This has been their game plan literally for decades, to use lawfare, to use the court system deviously to destroy their political opponents. It has to end, and the only way it ends is if it's totally exposed, and that's certainly what I'm dedicated to do here. Congressman Donalds.
Well, first of all, let's get to the point on this. Operation Arctic Frost and everything that's occurred under it, it was a scheme to investigate, to basically sideline, to suppress, to diminish Republican senators and other Republicans in our country. And the reason why they sought to do this is because they want to maintain political control over Washington, D.C. And when I say they, I mean the Democrat Party. This is outrageous that you've had Senator Scott and other United States senators have their records subpoenaed by Jack Smith, somebody who was brought into the Department of Justice by Merrick Garland and by Joe Biden. And if you notice, my question is, where's Chuck Schumer? Where's Hakeem Jeffries? Where are prominent Senate Democrats saying this is outrageous, saying there needs to be a full investigation? If the American people are paying attention, they're not saying a word. But they'll be at a No Kings rally, and they'll talk about how there are no kings in the United States, even though the United States defeated kings 250 years ago. They won't talk about that. But they'll be quick to be quiet when their colleagues in the United States Senate are having their records and their phones subpoenaed, they're having their records subpoenaed, they're having their phones tapped, they're having their offices tapped. They won't say a word about that. And I think it's important for the American people to understand. The reason they won't say a word is because this is a chilling effect on what the debates in this country are supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about public policy in the United States of America. And because they do not have a coherent political or policy argument about what's in the best interest of the American people, they are perfectly okay with using deep state actors to investigate their political rivals. It is un-American. And specifically to Judge Boasberg. Judge Boasberg, who was entrusted to sit on the bench, to be impartial and to be non-political, and to basically review cases in front of him and determine the constitutionality and the legality of the claims in front of him, he has taken it on his own to be a hyper-partisan judge going after Republicans, signing off on subpoenas that are unlawful. And he signed off on them just to get his political rivals. This is why he needs to be impeached. I commend Congressman Brandon Gill of Texas for leading this effort in the House to call for articles of impeachment of Judge Boasberg. And it'd be interesting to see what Minority Leader Schumer has to say about all this. Because if it's okay for a federal judge to sign off on subpoenas and warrants against Republicans in the United States Senate simply because they're going through not just fishing, like Senator Johnson said, this is not a fishing expedition. This was entrapment. This was trying to bury and to suppress your political rivals, all to maintain power in Washington, D.C. And I'll stress again, our Democratic colleagues, they want to talk about health care costs. Well, here are the facts. Their health care policy has led to premiums skyrocketing through the United States, deductibles skyrocketing through the United States. They have no policy answer. So instead of actually addressing the issues of the American people, what are they doing? They're using deep state actors like a Jack Smith, like a Judge Boasberg, to spy and to suppress the political abilities of Republican senators. This is outrageous. This is way bigger than Watergate. Way bigger than Watergate. And I want to hear what Senate Democrats have to say. I want to hear what House Democrats have to say. Because, to be blunt, if the shoe was on the other foot, oh, trust me, they will be on every media show, they will be in every hallway of this Capitol talking about how there need to be investigations, talking about people need to be impeached. And so now that, because they're not the target of this stuff, nobody's targeting them, but you have Rick Scott being targeted, you have Ted Cruz being targeted, you have many people, Jim Jordan been targeted, my colleague Scott Perry in the House, he's been targeted, and because it's Republicans being targeted, they have nothing to say. Democrats need to speak up. Do they want a country where there is free and open debate? Do they want a country that's for the people and of the people? Do they want a country where the law is blind? Or do they want a country where rogue judges and rogue prosecutors are targeting political rivals? This is insane. They need to step up and speak against this. Judge Boasberg needs to go. There needs to be far more investigations to root out this corruption in the United States government.
We can answer any questions anybody has. Yes.
Thanks, Senator. Actually, a question for Congressman Donalds. You mentioned the push for impeachment. What do you anticipate this, potential impeachment of Judge Boasberg looking like in the House? Would this be sort of a privilege resolution that goes to the floor and get a vote, or do you think that would have some committee process hearings markup similar to what we saw with, say, Mayorkas under the last Congress?
I haven't talked with Congressman Gill in a couple of days, so I'll leave that to him. He needs to answer that one because he's pushing that resolution. As I understand it, he wants to make sure that it gets to the floor quickly, might be privileged, but I'll actually leave that one to Congressman Gill. But he's been at this for a while. He has been observing and watching the actions of Judge Boasberg. This is not something new. He's been actually trying to pursue this for several months. And then when Operation Arctic Frost was made known to everybody, it actually only redoubled his efforts. And so I'm really thankful for his leadership on this issue. And the process in the House, I'll leave that to him and Speaker Johnson, but it needs to occur. It needs to occur this year.
Okay, let me inadvisably say something about what the House ought to do here. The impeachment hearing would be extremely important. We bring it over here into the Senate, and we know the Democrats will not vote to convict. Now, we can hold a trial. I'm not sure you do that on the floor of the Senate or just in a committee. But a House impeachment hearing or hearings would be extremely important, because the most important thing here is not necessarily the verdict. The most important thing is exposing exactly what happened, and a House hearing and Senate hearings would be a really good way of doing that.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.